Hey guys and girls, my name is Alan and welcome to today's video. So as you can probably tell from the title on the screen obviously of the video, today I'll be covering patch notes 1.05 for Mass Effect Andromeda multiplayer. Now the game's only been out a couple of weeks, but there are a lot of issues with the game. Balancing has been a big topic of discussion amongst the community, and a lot of people are looking forward to this particular balance because obviously it's the first one and it gives, well, some people have said it gives an indication of what BioWare intend to do going forward. A lot of comparisons have been made with Mass Effect 3 when it first came out, and I've already said before in a previous video that I don't think that's a fair assessment to make, because even if you take the experience that they should have learnt from Mass Effect 3 multiplayer, what they should have produced at the start of MEA multiplayer should have been a better quality, and it just isn't. And to say that obviously Mass Effect 3 has been out for longer and it had more support, blah 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 blah, yes, that's true, but you know, what's stopping them from having used that knowledge, that support that they've had for a game they've had for that long, and use some of it, not even all of it, some of it, into the start of MEA, multiplayer before releasing it to the public. They didn't have a beta, didn't have any of that sort of testing whatsoever. There are basic issues such as mods not even working. Someone found out that the shotgun mod, the smart choke, which is meant to reduce the spread of the pellets, does nothing. This was a problem which was in Mass Effect 3 multiplayer. They should have learnt that. They should have tested that. This is a mod. This is one of the things that they should have checked to see it actually works. At the moment, they've put it in. It does nothing. It just takes up a slot in your inventory, in your packs, and it does nothing. So these are fundamentals that they should have checked, and they should have. I don't know. I'm going into rant mode now. That's not the purpose of this video. So anyway, let's get down to business. So on the screen now, I'm going to show you. This is basically, I'm going to record this from the actual website itself. I'll link it in the description. This is the official patch notes. So I'm going to go through it with you. All right. So opens up, blah blah blah. Listen to the feedback. Yeah, we'll see about that. Okay. So one of the things that people talked about was that the Outlaw faction was a lot easier than the other two factions. Yes and no. Yes, they're easier, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they needed a buff. In some cases, I feel like the other two factions could do with toning down slightly, especially on the higher difficulties. They can, well, even on like silver difficulties, some of them can be harder than playing Outlaw on gold difficulty, which makes no sense. And I guess in that respect, yeah, Outlaws probably could do with a buff, but then the other two factions, Ket in particular, the sync kills on the Ket are just stupid, and they could do with a nerf. And then also the Remnant, for the most part, the Remnant are okay, in my opinion. It's just the flying breaches, the one with the laser thing that completely melts you if you're outside of cover. And it's just, when you come across a couple of those in gold, you're as good as on the floor before you can have a chance to react. So anyway, let's go down the list, blah, blah, blah. All right, so now we're getting to the crux of the patch notes. So the biggest thing they've changed is probably the melee. A lot of people have resorted to building melee kits and melee classes because that's just the most effective way of taking out enemies. I've already mentioned in one of my other videos that I went to shoot an enemy with a shotgun and I panicked. Well, it didn't do a lot of damage, so I panicked a melee instead, and that did more damage than the shotgun at point blank range. So it doesn't make any sense. Like, you can't blame people for falling back onto melee because the weapons are absolutely terrible. Well, the vast majority of them anyway. So apparently they've reduced that slightly. I haven't tried it myself, so I can't say. It's worth noting actually as well that the patch is now available across all platforms, and it's roughly about 2 point something gig. It's like 2.1 or something like that. So they've changed a little bit of the challenge tracking, so you can now see them better on the menus. It's not a massive deal, to be honest. I mean, here they talk about the semi-automatic assault rifles not being as good as the fully automatic ones. Well, I mean, they're all generally bad, so to say that one's worse than the other when they're all bad is a bit rich. But basically, they realised that, well, whether or not it's true or not, but apparently there was a bug with the Matuk, and something was stopping it from hitting the highest rate of fire possible. The Matuk is a semi-automatic assault rifle, so it should be that, in theory, it should fire as fast as you can pull the trigger. So that apparently something was stopping that. So they've managed to fix that, and but they thought that the damage was too high because of that, so they've now nerfed the damage, even though I don't think I've seen anybody use the Matuk in the 2 weeks that I've played multiplayer. So I don't know, I'll have to wait and see how this rate of fire does anything, if anything. Sandstorm, damage slightly increased. Sweeper, damage slightly increased. Valkyrie is an N7 weapon. I don't have it. I didn't like it in ME3 and I probably wouldn't use it anyway, but apparently that got slightly buffed. I mean, these are very small buffs if you notice. We're talking single digits here, nothing major. But again, until you try it in game, it's hard to say whether if they've had any sort of significant impact on the way you play. Halberd, which is meant to be a heavier hitting mattock. I don't have it yet, so I can't speak for it, but apparently that got buffed slightly, so potentially better now. But again, I don't think I've seen anyone use that in the 2 weeks that I've played. So again, I don't know if that's because they haven't unlocked it just like myself, or because it's just not very good. Moving on to pistols. So the Predator apparently suffered from the same bug as the mattock, so that rate of fire should now be better, and also the damage has been increased. Again, the Carnifex, the Hornet, the Phalanx, and the Scorpion, surprisingly. I didn't realise that that was going to get a buff. I didn't expect it to get a buff. Scorpion does a fair amount of damage anyway. It's got a tiny clip, and the rate of fire is pretty slow though, so maybe that's why they thought it needed a bit of a buff. So I'm looking forward to trying that out. Buffs are never a bad thing. So a lot of the pistols got minor buffs, as you can see there. So the one shotgun that did get a buff was the Hesh. I don't have it yet, so I can't speak for it, but again, buff, good, well, hopefully. Shadow and the Indra both got buffed slightly. These are both, I know that Indra is a full automatic sniper. It's more like a scoped assault rifle in my opinion. Don't know about the Shadow, but I'm guessing it's a similar sort of principle, especially if the damage per shot is that low. But again, both got buffed slightly, so that's good. Okay, so a big talking point amongst the community was the fact that reload cancelling was taken out of the game. Now, when I first started playing Mass Effect 3 multiplayer, I didn't use it because, well, I mean, obviously there was a lot of things I didn't use when I first started playing Mass Effect 3 multiplayer, but this was a technique that I heard about, and at some point I did actually decide to give it a try, and I realised that it actually changes a lot of the way that the weapons operate. Certain weapons that I thought previously weren't very good, such as the Claymore, the Widow, the Javelin, I thought that their reload times just made them inefficient, and that's the situation we're facing now in MEA multiplayer, is that the weapons don't have reload cancel, and because of that, the reload speeds are ridiculously long for these weapons. And so if you can't even get single shot kills on gold, what's the point in bringing it along? Because if you miss, or if you need to take a second shot or anything like that, your time to kill goes up and you might as well be using another weapon. I don't know if this means that weapon reloads will now be a lot faster, or if it just means that it stops you. Well, another thing that people moaned about was the fact that even though the reload times were really long, not only did you have to deal with that, but anytime you stopped, like, so let's say you just fired a shot, you had to start reloading, you're halfway through, and then you get rushed by an enemy, so obviously you naturally have to evade or whatever. Or if an enemy punches you while you're trying to evade as you're backing up and reloading, for example, it restarts the counter, so you might have to try and reload 2-3 times while you're trying to escape. And so when you finally do reach your destination, even though you're now safe from the enemy, you need to wait for your weapon to reload again before you can fire the shot. And then you could potentially be back at the same point where the enemy's up on you and you've had to evade again. And it's just, that's the reason why I don't use single shot weapons in this game at the moment. I don't know if reload cancelling is going to come back. As I said, it's something that is put in intentionally. So whether or not it can be actually put back into the game or altered to have in the game, I don't physically know. If you know, let me know in the comment section below. I'm not technically minded when it comes to this sort of thing, so I would really like to know if that's a possible scenario. Apparently there was a text issue with the assault rifle boost amp, so it only did 30 damage, but it said 35. I'm not using any of these until I actually get a decent assault rifle worth using it on. Alright, so moving on to enemies. Apparently some players found out that if you stood right next to a Ket Ket anointed as he was firing, you didn't take any damage. I don't think I've ever tried this, but you can't try it now anyway, but that would have been quite funny. And also, I did notice this, when you kill an orb, you get quite a lot of points, and apparently they've changed it now so that you only get a smaller amount of points, not equivalent to the same as killing him himself, which kind of makes sense. And I figured that wasn't the way they designed it to be. And again, it seems like a really obvious fix, which probably should have been tested before it was released, but the Ket Behemoth now targets players close to them rather than players which might be further away, which again makes zero sense whatsoever, but they've addressed it now, so that's good. Moving on to the Outlaws, the quote, inverted commas, easy, closing inverted commas, faction. So obviously they've noticed that people have started playing against outlaws quite often, and yeah, I've played my fair share, and I'll probably continue to play against them until I get better weapons, because it's just the easy way to grind credits on gold. So apparently the Addy, which is the well, not the dog thing, but the thing that attacks, you know, the little creature thing that attacks you. Apparently they're no longer chain sync attacks. So I guess before, if you broke out of one and there was another one, they could put you into another sync. So I think they've toned it down a bit, which is good, because that got a little bit annoying. But generally, you're going to try and kill them before they get to you anyway. They're not particularly tough enemies to fight, but they were annoying, and they did their job quite well, trying to flush you out of cover. Again, this is another funny one that I noticed. You got quite a lot of points for just killing the holographic clone of the outlaw agent, which is a Solarian. Now you don't get any points whatsoever, which I think is a bit harsh. You should get some points, not a lot, but you should get some points. And then obviously when you kill the actual thing itself, well, the agent, then you get the most points, but no points anymore. So, well, I guess you'll still shoot them, but you just don't get anything for it. Snipers on the outlaw team, the sharpshooters, apparently they didn't fire as often and weren't accurate, but not as damaging as they could be. So apparently now they'll fire more often, especially if you're out of cover. So if you're running across the map, for example, they're more likely to target you. If you get hit, you will take more damage, which I can foresee being a bit of a problem, because at the moment it strips all your shields entirely, which is what it's meant to do. It's what it did in ME3 as well. But now, if they've increased the damage and it bleeds through your shield, for example, I don't know yet, I haven't tested it, but I'm assuming that if that's the damage it did before, and now it does more damage, not only will it strip my shields, but it'll also go through to health as well. So that's going to be problematic, especially if you obviously get hit, not realize it, and then obviously get hit by another enemy, whether it's gunfire or melee or whatever. And apparently they're repositioning more often now. So, well, I mean, they reposition quite a lot in ME3, so I'm not that fussed about that change. But the more damage aspect, I'm definitely interested to see how much of an impact that has on my gameplay. And the rest is just minor stuff, audio and stuff like that, blah blah blah. So the Outlaw Berserker, which is the crow gun, apparently now they're more likely to target nearby players. Again, this is something that should have happened at the start and not required a patch, but that's good. Stops them rushing straight past, for example, an enemy that's in front of them and then towards you, which has happened a few times to my bemusement. And Outlaw Hydra, so I've never seen a sync attack on the Hydra, but apparently it does have one, and prior to this it wasn't a one-hit kill as with other sync attacks from other top level enemies. So now if you get synced, it will kill you. So, well, I'll continue to avoid them as I do anyway, but if you're one of those players who likes to rush up in front of it and melee it to death, not only will you have a harder time of meleeing it to death, it can now potentially, you know, sync kill you. So just be wary of that. And again, they're more likely to target nearby players, which is how it should be. So according to this, the when you cloak, sometimes enemies will just stop firing and ignore you completely. The Hydra will no longer do that. They will lose sight of you, but they will just keep obviously putting rounds into the area that you were. So even though you've cloaked, you still need to GTFO, which most people would do anyway. So I don't know how much that changes the situation. And I've never seen a Hydra reappear, but I guess if it did, that would be quite annoying. So that's been taken care of. Alright, moving on to the Remnant. So they've noticed themselves as well that the Observer... Wait, did I call it? I called it the Breacher earlier, didn't I? I meant the Observer. The flying... They're both flying things. Excuse my mistake. So the Observer, which is the one that flies around and fires a laser at you. The Breacher is the thing that flies towards you and explodes in your face. So they too noticed that the Observer was quite good. Well, that's an understatement on gold when you're facing more than one. So they've nerfed the Observer, and they've also made some minor changes to the Nullifier, which is the thing that like sort of tanks up, puts a shield out, and then fires shots at you, and it breaches cover as well, which is bloody annoying as hell. But we'll talk about that in a second. So Observers now lose their targets when you cloak. So I don't know if that's just the same situation as what the Hydra was we talked about earlier. So it might lose sight of you, but it was still firing in the same location. So again, I mean, you GTFO anyway, so it's not a massive deal after you cloak, but you shouldn't stay still is the bottom line here. Maximum beam duration has been decreased from 6 to 5. I mean, it's only a second, but you know, it's better than nothing. If they bring it down a little bit more, that'd be great, but if not, then it's better than nothing. Apparently the damage has been increased by 10%. I don't know, shorter duration, less damage. It's not a bad thing for the Observer, but we'll have to wait and see obviously how that affects us in gameplay. So the Nullifier, as I mentioned briefly earlier, has also been altered slightly. Rate of fire has been increased against enemies in cover. So if you're in cover, they're less likely to fire as often, which I guess is how it should be, because you're in cover and therefore they shouldn't have a shot. But their rounds breach cover anyway, so it's one of those sort of things where taking cover is kind of pointless. Projectiles now travel faster and hit harder. Kind of agree with this. Obviously, I don't want it to be buffed, but it was very easy to dodge the hits, and when it hit, it didn't really, doesn't really fill you with the same sort of fear as being hit by, say a Hydra or or the Ket Ascendant. You never really felt the fear when you got hit by a round. You hit around, you thought, oh, okay, well, I've got to take cover for a bit. But when you get hit by one of the other two, you're sort of like, crap, I seriously need to get out of here now. So yeah, so I can sort of understand why it's been increased. It stays still and fires in more situations. I guess, yeah, I sort of agree with that, because it did move around a lot, and every time it moved around, obviously it had to retract its shield, find a new position, set its shield down. By that time, you probably could have killed it already. So yeah, it's not a big deal, but just means that I guess in some ways it's easier for you to evade it, because if it sets down in a location to start shooting at you, and you go to the next room, for example, he has to then pick himself up and then do it all over again. So I guess it works both ways. I have no idea what this other point means. No longer flees in protracted melee situations. I don't know. If you know what that means, let me know in the comment section below. Single player fires less frequently on lower difficulties. Makes no difference to me in single player. I don't think I've progressed far enough to... Wait, no, I have come across these guys before, but it doesn't really make too much of a difference how I play. So moving on to the big guy, the Remnant Destroyer. Apparently it's more likely now to target enemies, well, players closer to it. Again, that's how it should be. And fix the situation where the destroyer's body and turret would reappear after being destroyed. So similar to the Hydra, I'm guessing, from earlier. So for some reason, after you destroy these things, they can just reappear back on the map, which I guess would be kind of annoying, but not something I've faced personally, at least not that I recall, so it's not a big deal. And that's the end of the patch notes, as you can see. So I will link this in the description if you want to read it for yourself, but I haven't cut anything out. This is everything that's on the website at the moment, and I've just talked through it and just given you my opinions on the situation as it stands. Some things that aren't mentioned in the patch notes but have sort of materialized in the game. There's one new character, the Solarian Architect. Basically, he's got the drop down shield thing, the barrier, and Incinerate, and then he's got Remnant VI as his third power. Haven't unlocked him yet. I haven't unlocked a lot of classes yet, so it's hard for me to say if he's any good or not. But yeah, they probably should have mentioned that. I don't get why they would talk about this stuff when they're not that. And so they've dropped a new character in. So if you want to check him out, then obviously go into your game and see if you can unlock him via a pack. That's how you get him. He is a gold card, which means rare. So I don't know. I haven't really maxed out all of my uncommons yet, so I don't know when I'll be getting him, but give him a crack if you have him already. Let me know in the comment section how he fares. And also, there's been a few reports of various other things having been tweaked slightly. Now, these are the official patch notes. As you see, it doesn't talk about powers or anything like that. A few weapons here and there, mostly to do with the enemy classes. So that's patch notes 1.05. This is, as I said, taken from the official BioWare blog, the website. As I said, link is in the description, so you can check it out for yourself if you want to, but I've covered everything. Haven't missed anything out. There's just one other thing I do want to mention actually while I'm here, is that apparently, even though this is supposedly the full list, there have been some other changes to the game. So as I've already said, there's one new character that's been added, which they didn't talk about at all, which I found a bit odd. But there are some unconfirmed reports that powers and stuff like that have been adjusted slightly, not a lot, slightly, but they might do a bit more damage now. I don't know which powers in particular. I don't think it's all of them. I think it's just certain ones. It's possible that they found some more bugs that they didn't want to talk about or highlights, and they've now fixed them. Sort of a thing that BioWare would kind of do. If you were here from ME3, you sort of know that. So possibly there's quite a few more changes that we don't yet know about, but might have changed multiplayer for the better. So I don't know, keep playing and see how it goes. Oh, actually, yes. Apparently, that the devices, these take a little bit less time to complete now. So hopefully less infuriating, especially if you're like me and you've had to face that bug where you have to keep restarting it over and over and over again because of whatever reason. I assume lag, but it's just totally stupid. But yeah. So that will wrap up today's video then. I will of course be covering future patch notes. I don't know how often these are going to come out. With ME3 it was once every week. With MEA it's been 2 weeks, and I can't see them releasing it every week because they're just, I don't know, to me it just doesn't seem as though they're giving as much precedent to multiplayer at the moment, because single player obviously that's what they want to fix first, and then obviously eventually they'll move on to multiplayer. And I don't know, we'll have to wait and see how it goes, but I will cover it here, obviously, if we get any more new information. Head over to AcornVision Gaming if you want to see some multiplayer footage. I haven't been uploading as many matches at the moment because I'm just kind of using the same classes over and over again with the same weapons, and I mean, they work for me, but they're a little bit boring to watch over and over again, so which is why I haven't uploaded too many matches. But more varieties come in the future, especially when they buff things that I can actually use certain other things as well. If you're interested in Uncharted 4, gameplay commentary should be coming up this weekend, if not tomorrow, if I can get it done. And if you haven't already seen it, there is a new map for Uncharted 4 multiplayer, which I have done a walkthrough on the channel, so check it out if you want to see the map. And also I talk a little bit about the patch notes that they sort of introduced with that update as well. So all on the channel, as I said. Right then, if you enjoyed the content, consider tapping that like button. I really do appreciate it. And as I said, let me know in the comment section below if you've got any thoughts you'd like to share me regarding these patch notes. And until next time, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, take care, and I will see you later.